Hey, help support the show by becoming a member on Patreon or YouTube. You'll get 4 bonus videos a month, plus ad-free versions of every Junkyard Pod, and a special shout out at the beginning of each video. This is the best way to help me as a creator, and so thank you and go Cavs.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world. Let's get ready to
Welcome to the Junkyard Pod. I'm Tony Pesta, joined by Jackson Flickinger, and with the NBA playoffs just days away, we have the ultimate friend of the show joining us to talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers, Brian Windhorst, the king of the block on Cavs Corner. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for giving us your time.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. I consume your content all season long, so at least I could do is help you make a little bit of it.
Thank you.
It means a lot to have you on. Go ahead, Jackson.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and obviously we consume your content. I mean, that's whenever you write about the Cavs, it's like a holiday. I remember during their first win streak, was it like 9 games you finally wrote? I think you wrote like a longer piece about them, and I was like, this is great. The Cavs are officially back because Wendy's writing long form about the Cavs again.
Yeah, I don't get to do as much of it as I used to because I've got all this other stuff. So it's the reason why I'm wearing all this makeup right now. I don't really have a tan. If you guys come to the games, Jackson, I know you come to the games, right? Like if you see me on Sunday, my face won't look like this. So, this is the magic of makeup and lighting where I happen to be right now. But, I wish I could do more writing. I had, the most fun I ever had covering a Cavs season was a 2008-9 season. You guys are probably 8 and 9 yourselves. But that season was so much fun because the LeBron pressure hadn't started yet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was kind of a little bit, but like, it wasn't like day to day. And we knew they were going to be a good team, but we didn't see 66 wins coming. And like night to night, like throughout that not the playoffs, the playoffs, they went 8-0 out of the gate, but throughout the season, it was just like every 2 or 3 days, it was like time to go watch the Cavs kick another team's backside, and like, you went around the country and every single game where it could have gone either way, the Cavs won. It was like just 66 wins. It was so much fun to be around that team. You want to get real. Delonte was on the straight and narrow, which wasn't the case the next year. So like Delonte was good. Mo Williams was good. Like I remember Ben Wallace after a game, like when Mo Williams didn't get voted into the All-Star game, like, calling a press conference to call it a Travis Shamokery, for example. Like there was a real connection with that team. They liked each other. They had a lot of stuff. And so I could go down memory lane for a while. That's what I felt like watching this team as night after night after night. They're just burying threes. The ball is zipping around. Every single guy that Kenny puts in the game, like, looks awesome. Like there were some games where like 9 guys touched the floor and all 9 guys were awesome. It's like he's got the magic touch. Oh, he's going to play this guy 26 minutes tonight. He's going to be a plus 17. He's going to play that guy 28 minutes that night. He's going to be a plus 27. Like everything he did was gold. And I'll be honest, I went to training camp in Sarasota and I talked to some guys there, and I listened to what Kenny said, and I listened to what Donovan said, and I was like, they're going to win 51 games, and it'll be great, and they won't have a chance to win. They don't have enough talent. And, I know why they gave Evan the max. I get it, but I wasn't sold on him getting the max. Like I knew for like 2 months he was getting the max. It's like, okay, this is a bit of a risk. And like, I was listening to what they were saying was going to happen with Evan. And I was like, oh, okay, I watched last season, right? I was on the island of break him up. I'm like, you should have broken him up and instead you paid him $300 million, but Jarrett and Evan. And so the unexpected dominance of this team was extremely entertaining to watch. And I started to come around in January There was this run of games. You guys probably remember chapter and verse, but there was this run of games where after every game, like either the head coach or the star of the opposing team was like, my God, are these guys good? And then I realized they're going to have to trade LeVert because this team can win it. They're good enough to win it. This isn't just a fun story. Because even when they went 15-0, it was fun, but it's like, well, I don't know if that's real. In January, I came around and started getting serious about them. So it's been a really enjoyable season to watch. Obviously, as Donovan said 100 times, it doesn't matter. What matters is the postseason. So here we are.
I think that puts it perfectly, because that was going to be the opening question, was just like, how crazy is it to go from where we were in the summer to where the Cavs are now, to where they've it's funny. We could have all seen the potential for certain individual things, right? Like, okay, Darius Garland, he'll get healthy. He could have a bounce back season. If the Evan Mobley league was ever going to happen, hopefully it's going to happen soon. Kenny Atkinson, maybe he'll help the offense, but to see it all happen all at the same time, that was just the dream scenario that you don't see very often. And so I love the comparison to the 2008-9 Cavs. That's how Cavs corners in full swing right now. We got the Delonte West, Mo Williams name drop in the opening minutes of this pod. We're playing at a high level right now.
Yeah, I loved that team so much. It was so much fun. The next year was not fun at all, really, even though Shaq, I loved the Shaq experience. I had a really good time covering Shaq. I wasn't sure I was going to be. He was great to us in the media. I did not like walking on eggshells around Delonte. So much was going on that year that we really couldn't talk about. More not like more like out of respect to him, but forget about that. That doesn't matter now. But I really thought that team could win, except for the fact that they did look terrible against the Magic. Like when they played the Magic, they didn't look good. And I think they played them 3 times that year and they lost 2. And the last time they played them was in March, and it was in Orlando. And I remember, I don't remember what the Magic won the game by, but they were up by 40 at one point. And I remember this columnist for the Orlando Sentinel sort of wrote this flippant column like, well, if the Magic play the Cavs in the playoffs, they're going to beat them. And I remember reading it and I was like, I don't like the way this guy wrote this, but I'm having a hard time like seeing where he might be wrong. And, then if you remember, Magic played the Celtics in the round before the Cavs, and the Cavs swept the Hawks. They had like 10 days off. And they hadn't played in the arena in like 2 weeks because they had, played 1 and 2, and then they played 3 and 4 on the road, and they were off for 10 days. So the Sunday that the Magic played the Celtics in Game 7, the Cavs actually had a practice in the Q. Rocket Arena was called the Q back then when I was a kid. And just because they wanted to get back in the arena, and the arena was nothing in the arena. You can't book it out because, you have to have playoff games. And I remember going to the practice, and the Celtics Magic game hadn't happened yet. It was like a 3:30 game. The practice was going on early. And I remember LeBron was at the free throw line mimicking all of the Celtics players' free throw routines. They were so convinced they were going to play the Celtics that, because, they played the Celtics the year before in the playoffs and went 7 games. They were so convinced they were going to play the Celtics that LeBron, he probably could have done this anyway, but like you could tell they studied them so much that LeBron was doing everybody's free throw routine like perfectly. And then the Magic hit a bunch of threes. They win. They come into the queue 2 days later, win Game 1. Obviously, that's where it goes. The reason I say all that is because I don't see a team that is that way. The Cavs, what did they sweep? They swept 17 teams or something this year. Is that the number?
I think so, yeah.
They lost a couple of times to the Celtics, but you don't walk. Donovan kicked the Celtics behinds. Like, you don't walk into that game thinking that you can't win. I would favor the Celtics. I've been saying that for months. I mean it. You're not afraid of that team. Like, they're going to be hard, but you can beat them. The Thunder, the Cavs didn't put their best foot forward in OKC, but the game in Cleveland was one of the best games of the year. And it wasn't like the Cavs shot 17 of 22 on threes. They had a good night that night, but like not unrepeatable. So the only thing I'll say about this team is like, I didn't see a team that they ran into during the year. Like, oh my God. Cause like last year, the Celtics, they went 0-2 against the Nuggets. And had the Nuggets not melted down the stretch of Game 7 at home, the second round last year, where they lost to the Timberwolves, the Nuggets might have been in the finals again, and the Nuggets might have won the title because the Celtics felt a certain way. They were pretty much untouchable last year, but they were touched by the Nuggets. I don't see that with the Cavs this year. That doesn't mean that they'll sail through, but I think that Kenny Atkinson did a great job, and their personnel is built in such a way that they can play a whole bunch of different ways. Yeah, they got to play well. Yeah, they got to hit their shots. This team, despite not having prime LeBron James winning the MVP on it, in a lot of ways, despite being comparable to that 8-9 team, is more equipped, in my view, to compete and win 16 playoff games.
That is something that you are saying, that because those teams were so good and LeBron was so good. And I think that it's easy now when you look at the teams that LeBron has had since then to kind of discount how well those teams fit together, specifically like that 08-09 team. But that was a good team. And this team, fits together even better. And I do love when you go and name some guys, because I think that's my favorite thing that you do when you go down memory lane, because this is so much fun for me.
We're going to have Jamario Moon memories.
Oh,
is that what you're looking for?
I don't know if I want Jamario Moon
stanky
memories.
Stanky
But
leg.
Jamario Moon's one of my favorite name drops. That one, people forget about him, but that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I didn't like Anthony Parker, so I felt that he just missed a lot of shots, in my opinion. But again, I was not covering
one of there was some things about Maccabi Tel Aviv. Dan Gilbert was obsessed with Maccabi Tel Aviv. Maybe not obsessed, but he was very well aware of Maccabi Tel Aviv. It's one of the reasons he hired David Blatt. Anthony Parker had been Danny Ferry was on board with signing Anthony Parker as well, but because he obviously had been with the Raptors, but he came to the NBA because he was the EuroLeague MVP at Maccabi Tel Aviv, and I think Gilbert was obsessed with it. In fact, one time in 2005-ish, Maccabi Tel Aviv came and played in Cleveland. I think they've played in Cleveland since, but Maccabi Tel Aviv came and played in Cleveland. And earlier on that trip to the U.S., they beat an NBA team. I can't remember who they beat. And it was embarrassing, as you can imagine, a EuroLeague team coming in. And so the Cavs played to make sure that they beat Maccabi Tel Aviv. I'm not saying that just to be clear, I'm not saying that Dan Gilbert came down and told Mike Brown, you'll play LeBron 34 minutes, but the Cavs played to make sure that they did not get embarrassed. And they played LeBron more minutes than you would normally see in a preseason game. They did win. And then the next day, they played a preseason game in Rochester, New York, against the Raptors. Apparently, for weeks, if not months, this game had been promoted with LeBron on billboards. And again, this is, pre-resting, whatever, pre-load management. LeBron is 25, you're 23 or whatever. You're not worried about it. Well, the Cavs took one look at the floor. It was this old, rock hard floor at the War Memorial Coliseum, Rochester War Memorial Arena. And they were like, LeBron is not playing on this court. And, because he had also played a bunch the night before. And it almost caused a riot. It's the only time I've ever been to Rochester. And people were furious. There's no Twitter. They didn't get pre-warned LeBron was out. And it was a 5,000 seat arena. They used to play preseason games back then, in places like that. And people were pissed. And LeBron thought he might have a little bit of fun with them. So midway through the third quarter, he stood up and pretended to run to the scorer's table and got halfway there and turned around. The fans did not think that was funny.
Yeah, that's just sick.
Having said all that, Anthony Parker was on that team, and they split the mid-level. They broke the mid-level in half. I think they gave half of it to Anthony Parker and half of it to Mario Moon, but they thought they were boosting their bench, but it didn't work out really.
So one thing I did want to ask you, and what you touched on this earlier when you were talking about, going to Sarasota, seeing Kenny Atkinson for the first time. It seemed like the reporting at the time was that James Borrego could have easily gotten this job. How close were the Cavs to not hiring Kenny Atkinson?
I think it was close. And in full disclosure, I have a really good relationship with James Borrego. So he was really, really upset he didn't get it. Not at the Cavs, because he thought he actually helped me understand. Like, I knew it was a good job. Don't get me wrong. It's a 50-win team that fired their coach. But he was like a real believer that this team could be this good. Like, he believed it was there. And I think he probably said that to the Cavs. I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know exactly what happened, but I know that the Cavs really tried to send the message that it was not Dan Gilbert who like wrote in and made the call. You can just take away whatever you want from that. I think Kobe also was he wanted to protect Dan. He didn't want to make it seem like Dan was, whatever. There was some attempt at cleaning up that narrative. So you can decide whether or not you think that cleanup was because it was really wrong or whether they were trying to manage it. I wasn't there, so I don't know. I will just tell you that narrative existed.
Okay, so we have just a few more quick questions we'll get to, and then we'll let you go. But this is one that I was excited to ask because there's been a lot of discourse around how the NBA is covered by the national media this season more than the last few, even though I feel like it's been, a hot button issue for a while now. And so I wanted to know, in your opinion, how do you feel about the way that we cover teams like the Cleveland Cavaliers? And you think there needs to be an improvement, or just what's your insight as someone who covers the league nationally?
So, well, I know how you guys feel. Tony, you love X's and O's, right? Like you're really into that. You're breaking down the videos. I'm watching them. I'm a believer in balance. I think there's room for everything. And I think when you get in trouble is when you sort of lean too far one way or the other. So you're not going to necessarily get balance on First Take. If you look at First Take and when you make that your barometer for where NBA discussion is, you may have a certain way. I believe the balance exists, but it's too hard to find. So like your work, your guys' work is designed for sort of the more robust Cavs fan, like the more robust Cavs fan is going to find you. I think it's better for there to be balance so that you do get more story. In my personal view, we're a little bit out of balance from arguments versus storytelling. I think it would be better. I'm not saying get rid of arguments. It fires people up. Like when I run into people out in the world and they ask me stuff, they want to talk to me about some of the arguments that we run. Like people complain about ESPN talking about the Warriors and the Lakers. Every game that I watched, the Lakers were on the road. A third to half the crowd is Laker fans. Like if you are a believer in analytics, like if you want to discuss basketball in an analytical form because you have a certain way you look at it and you say statistics lean towards playing this way, whether it's a lineup, whether it's a shot diet, whatever. If you believe in analytics, you should understand why ESPN talks a lot about the Lakers. Because ESPN doesn't talk about the Lakers because the boss man likes the Lakers or boss woman likes the Lakers. ESPN talks about the Lakers a lot because the analytics tell us that's what the audience wants. I know it's not the same as eliminating a long two, but in some ways, talking about pick and roll coverage is a long two when it comes to television. So having said that, it's not just willy-nilly. What you see, and it's not just ESPN, obviously everybody's doing this, but what you are seeing is in some way a response to what the audience wants. Having said that, I think two things would be better balance-wise. I think it would be better if us in the national media led a little bit more than followed. And what I mean by that is we do some of it. I don't want to make it sound like we don't do any of it, but I think it would be better if we presented different options to the viewer, reader, listener that maybe they could get into. Okay. In other words, instead of following whatever we know will get the most clicks, views, etc. And I think just in general, better, more enriching storytelling. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what we all want is a story. Because like, what is the, I mean, like, if you want to get existential, what is the NBA really doing? The NBA is helping people fill time in the winter and in the spring. But like, you know, the winter sucks. We're not as out as much, especially in the middle of the country, in the middle north of the country. The NBA exists to provide a way to entertain people in the winter. Like that's what basketball is. And so let's lean into the entertainment part of it. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all talking about a round ball going through a ring. Okay. We're helping people have a diversion from other stuff in life that they don't want as much, that happens 3 or 4 nights a week, and that they love to continue to engage in the morning in their ears or on their phones or whatever. It's all just storytelling. So let's lean into the storytelling a little bit more. That's my view. I would suggest more balance. Not everybody agrees with me. Some people agree with me a lot. Some people want something totally different. Some people really they want to replace all the Lakers coverage with X and O's coverage. You know, they want the whole halftime show to be about how the Lakers dealt with the double teams that were being thrown at Luka Doncic. And they, you know, and that's what they want. I don't think that's good either. I think that's out of balance. So what I'm hoping for and strive towards as much as I can is a better balance. So I think we're a little bit out of balance. And I am just one person who tries, who can't always impact change, but that is my viewpoint on it. And by the way, I do think the NBA is in a good place. And I do think that there's a lot of content produced about the NBA that is very good. This idea that it's a disaster and nothing, or the league is awful or whatever. We all know that that's not true, but, I covered the NBA for a long time. I remember what the games used to look like. If you guys go back and look, I don't know if you ever have, you guys are probably kids, when LeBron had the 48 special. You guys watched that game recently? It was awful. The game was awful. Oh my God. So many missed shots. So slow. Like, it's remembered as this incredible classic LeBron game. And it was because he had never done it before. And it was an upset. Go on YouTube. Some of those possessions were brutal. And that's regarded as a classic game. Like, there are dudes in this league who are like, back then, go watch it. Go watch that game and watch a game today and tell me one is not way better basketball than the other. I challenge you. You don't even have to watch it for that long. Yes, there are 5 or 6 moments where LeBron does stuff where you're like, wow. But I seriously say that performance is not in the top 15 LeBron playoff games, maybe 20. Now, you never could rank it that way because he was the underdog. He'd never done it before. And you can't do the other great games without doing that first. So you can't strip out the time and place. But in terms of the actual performance, it was great. But by LeBron standards, it was like on a scale of 1 to 10, closer to 8 than 10, in my opinion. So I don't know. I know that can be sacrilege, but I would encourage you, whenever you feel bad about the NBA, go watch a game from 2007.
Yeah. There's definitely some nostalgia there. And I just real quick, I wanted to say, I think I agree with you. I think it's a very fair point as far as the media coverage goes. There is a balance, and it is a business at the end of the day. So you need a little bit of both. And I think the Hoop Collective does a great job of balancing. And I think that's part of the reason why everyone loves the Hoop Collective. But you hit on something that I always say this too, is like, there's great basketball content out there. You just have to find it. Sometimes it's difficult to find, but you have to find what works for you. That's my advice to everyone. I get comments all the time. Ask me, did you see what this person said on ESPN or on this other show? And it's like, a lot of the time it's no, I didn't see it because I don't watch the content that I know is, the hot take aspect of the national TV. Like, that's just not what I look for. I find the other stuff. And so that's my advice for everyone. Just go find the shows.
There's
that
a lot
you
of good
and
guys.
Them.
Guys, I didn't go to a Cavs regular season game. I haven't been to a Cavs regular season game this year. That I wish I could. That just didn't. My schedule didn't work. My first Cavs regular season game will be Sunday. It's not regular season. My first when I went to training camp, my first time seeing the Cavs play in person this year is in training camp. Now, I do talk to people in the Cavs organization. I do talk to scouts who are professionals. I do talk to other people who are around the team, et cetera, know what they're doing. That's where I get my information. I've seen some basketball, so some of the stuff that I see, I know a little bit about what I'm seeing. A lot of the stuff is I'm consuming stuff about the Cavs. There's good stuff on there about the Cavs. I'm not just saying this. There is good coverage of the Cavs that is out there. It exists. As I said, like, I'm not just kissing your ass. Like, if I didn't think you guys were good at this, I wouldn't be here. Part of the way, seriously, like, and by the way, it's not just the Cavs. There are, like, when I'm out here in LA, like I am right now, I don't live in LA, but I come out here a lot. I wake up at like 3:45 in the morning and I will listen to podcasts about games, about teams that I have to talk about on ESPN, because the people who are very close to the teams will sometimes talk about things, and I'll say, you know what, let me go research that. And I will talk to somebody. I will text somebody. I know there was a scout at the game, and I'll say, hey, what about this? So, like, I actually think the NBA media is in a good place. It is decentralized, which that means that the consumer has to work a little bit harder, and that's not ideal. And so therefore it's a little harder. I wish it was back in the day, it was more centralized, but not as good. Now it's very good, but decentralized, so it's fragmented. But I think the Cavs are well covered, quite frankly. Maybe not on the road as much, because there's not as much on the road. You don't always get the questions. But I spend a lot of time talking about the Cavs that I do without, I talk to Cavs players, but I haven't been in the locker room. So, I couldn't do that without consuming stuff that the fans can consume right alongside me, quite frankly.
We appreciate you saying that. I mean, I know that we're a small part of that, but it means a lot to, hear that you enjoy some of the stuff that we try to do. And, the Cavs do definitely have some good people there. It's a good media room.
Yeah. So I look forward to coming for this first round series. I think the Cavs should probably want to play Atlanta. And the reason I say that is because I think Miami has Herro and Bam are really good, and like they can elevate them. Obviously Trey can do it. I feel like Miami's ceiling might be a little higher. Obviously Miami was the 10 seed and Atlanta was the 8. So you would say, well, no, you'd want to play the 10 seed, but I think Miami might be I could be wrong. I think Miami might be a tad more dangerous. So we'll see though. But I'm looking forward to coming to Cleveland, and I don't know, maybe I'll be in Cleveland a lot for the next 6 weeks. We'll find out.
We hope that you are.
Yeah, we definitely hope so. We hope it's a long playoff run. We're going to ask one more quick question, one last bonus question. Jackson, I'll let you hit it because it was our last question on the rundown. Go ahead, take it away, Jackson.
So I was going to ask, do you have, because we did some naming of guys, do you have like a favorite like Cavalier that is not like a, LeBron James, Mo Williams, Kyrie Irving type level guy? Like, who's your favorite under the radar Cavalier of all time? Like
Sasha Pavlovich?
Yeah.
I'm just teasing. There were some amazing Sasha moments over the years.
Really?
He was a fascinating guy. I don't want to, talk about all of them, but I can't. Maybe after you turn off the radio, Jesus. When you turn off the recording, I'll tell you one of my favorite all-time LeBron stories involves Sasha that cannot be told. And I hate to tease, but who was my favorite? I mean, my favorite Cav was probably Zydrunas Ilgauskas. Z has the most wonderful dry sense of humor. And I also covered him for like 8 or 9 years. I got to, he went through a lot of stuff in his time with the Cavs. Z has had some terrible tragedies in his life, terrible tragedies. And he's had some great moments, and in a lot of ways he was a bridge to the pre-LeBron era to the post-LeBron era. And he just was sort of always around, lumbering up and down the court. It was crazy about Z was that, like, he obviously had a thick accent, and you could understand Z better on the tape recorder than you could live sometimes. I know that sounds crazy, but like sometimes he would say something I had no idea what he'd say, and I'd go back and listen to it like 10 minutes later on my headphones, and I'd start laughing because he made some sort of joke that I missed. And the thing is, Z he broke the navicular bone in his foot 2 or 3 times. And the way that he basically got through his career was that he soaked the living hell out of his feet in ice. And he, especially on the road, he would have to sit in the ice bucket. He was the last guy. Nowadays, they have all kinds of technology, but he had to sit in the ice bucket for longer than anybody. He was the last guy into the shower. I mean, because he, whatever they decided Z had to sit in the ice for 30 minutes or 22 minutes or whatever it was. And so Z would sit there and, frankly, chew tobacco and, pre-smartphone for some of this, nowadays a guy would be on a smartphone and you could hang out with Z while he spent probably 10,000 hours. I'm not even kidding you, soaking those 2 feet in ice. And we would be at all these arenas and you could hang out with him while he sat, because all the other, it's a road game. The other guys are getting showered, getting leave, and that was an amazing chance for media to hang out with Z. And he had a great sense of humor, and he liked movies. We sometimes would, talk about movies. And so I don't even know if that connection is even available today because of the restrictions on the locker rooms and stuff like that. But like, that was truly an old school thing. And so, like the locker room would be like kind of emptied out, and up would come Z, take his feet out of the tub, and go limping off because he couldn't feel his feet because they were numb from being in the ice. He would go limping off into the shower to warm up, and then he would leave. And like that was like for years and years and years on end. And like when Z went to Miami, like guess what? He's still soaking those feet for 30 minutes. And the people in Miami didn't know, but I knew that Z would be over there. So Z had, I had lived my whole life in Cleveland. I was born and raised in Akron. I moved to Cleveland to cover the Cavs, and I did for 7 years every day. Z didn't know anything about the U.S. other than Cleveland. I mean, obviously he traveled the country, he knew it, whatever. But like his whole American life was in Cleveland. And then when he was, in his mid 30s, I think I was 30 or 31, he moved to Miami. I moved to Miami, like his house was bigger than mine, but we were having some of the same experiences. And so anyway, probably Z. The second run with the Cavs, there was too much pressure. There was, obviously good times. There was, those years were good years. I mean, I still to this day, I feel like anybody who was involved with the 2016 Cavs, you've heard that the players group chat's still alive.
Yeah.
But like anybody who's involved with that team, not to be clear, not that I was involved with the team, but obviously I was around, there's a connection. So like when you see Ty Lue, when I see Ty Lue when I go to a Clippers game, there's that connection. Richard Jefferson, I work with him now, at ESPN, like there's a connection. Whenever I see Kevin Love, which maybe I'll see him this weekend, 2016 Cavs, like that was such a special moment. If you were even on the periphery there's that connection. And so that was certainly a unique situation, but the good old days were back in the 2000s when we were all a bit more naive, and there wasn't like oh, this is fleeting. There was a feeling that this could last. And, the Cavs had some great years in there. And there wasn't as much social media to worry about and whatever. So I do have really good memories from that. If I could have frozen time in the 2008-9 season, I would have frozen time in the 2008. I like if I could live that year over and over, the Groundhog Day, I would have lived that year over and over, because going to work every single day in that year was a joy. I loved it. It was my first year at the Plain Dealer. I wanted nothing more in my life than to work at the Cleveland Plain Dealer. So those were very happy days. And I wasn't around the team like in the locker room or whatever this year, but I kind of feel like that could be this way. And so like in I'll stop after this, but I don't know if you guys ever knew who Ben Starcher was. Ben Starcher was the guy who started the Real Cavs Fans site.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
He never said what his name was. He just went by Real Cavs Fans Ben. And by the way, Ben Starcher knew stuff. He had sources in the organization. Okay. And, I would stay connected to Ben through thick and thin. And those 2018 through 22, and especially 2010 through 14, those really lean years, I would always stay in touch with Ben. And this year, he fell in love with this team. He would text me. Sometimes I would be at a game, or I'd be out here on the West Coast and I wasn't paying attention. And I would get this text from him that would say, Brian, this team is special. Brian, this team is special. He was a realist. He wasn't, a fan above all else. Like, oh my gosh, he totally was a realist. He believed this team was special. And he kept saying that to me, that, this team is special. This team is special. Like in a way that the other, the 2016 team was special, in a way that the 2008-9 team was special. And he, unfortunately passed away on Christmas. So he didn't, he didn't get to see the 16-game winning streak. But he saw it before I did. He saw what this team could be before I did. And he was moved by this team. And so that kind of stuff leaves me. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that they're going to make this magical run. They may not. They've got some flaws. Their last month is concerning. I'm not sure why they stopped making threes. They need to start making more threes again, all that stuff. Teams are going to challenge Evan on switches. We saw that in the season. That if you get to the Celtics series, Jason Tatum is going to go after Evan on switches, what have you. It's not a perfect situation. However, I am incredibly intrigued by what this could be. And like Ben was the guy who sensed it. He sensed it as a guy who's been around a long time. So I say all that, and I've been saying this when I've, done appearances in Cleveland. Block out the next 8 weeks. I don't know if they're going to be there. I don't know how it's going to go. I think one of the things media people do too much is try to pretend like they know more than they do. I don't know, but I feel there is something with this group. So I'm going to come and I want to feel it for myself, and I'm going to see how far it goes. So stick around with you guys, because you guys will be covering it better than I will be.
Definitely wouldn't go that far, but I'll be glad to see you on Sunday.
Yeah. All right. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for giving us your time. We really, really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone who watched this episode of the Junkyard Pod. If you want to support us, please hit the follow button, like, subscribe, do all that. Become a member on Patreon. With all that being said, go Cavs.